Welcome to Keep Hustling, where we are going past the why to get to the how. I'm your host, the always hustling Aaron Gordon, aka NY Risk Advisor, aka Mr. Keep Hustling. In this podcast, we will be diving deep into the professional and personal successes of our guests to find out how they hustled through the most difficult times in their life and their development to achieve the success they've gotten to today. So buckle up for what hopes to be an amazing ride. And of course, now and always, keep hustling. Welcome to Keep Hustling with my guest, Baruch Shemtov. Baruch, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I mean, we go way back, so I love this. It's like a full circle moment.
I think that you are the second longest friend / acquaintance that I've had on this. There is someone who I went to school with when I was 2.
Okay.
So I think he wins.
I don't like being second best in anything, but today I'll take it.
And it's about meaningful connections. It doesn't have to be the longest. It's about meaningful connections.
Quality over quantity. I'm with
Quality over quantity. So, but really, it's amazing to have you here. As you know, we've gone way back. We've recently reconnected, and I'm so grateful for your friendship, for your support, for your partnership, and everything like that.
Same.
And everybody, I've said this on a few episodes, but I am telling you, if there's a hustler who you want to follow, Baruch is one of them. I don't want to say that he's the hustler because then people will say, well, Baruch is the top hustler. We're going to get into it a little bit.
Thank you.
And anybody who reads your bio, we don't do a full bio reading because I think that's boring, but anybody who would read your bio, and who I encourage people to look at the show notes and read your bio, will say, this guy is a hustler. And I've known you since we were babies, but let's just put that aside. What is it in you? What is it in your upbringing, in you, that created that hustle? And I want to just preface that with, you started a business in high school, you've had an incredible career to date, and it's only just beginning. So many people could say some people have success, but I'm saying there's got to be something in it to get it to really rock from the beginning.
I think honestly, it's the curiosity, right? I am curious about so many different things, and I have so many varied interests where I never am satisfied, right? As soon as I know enough or feel like I've done one thing, I feel like I need to push further, go deeper, and expand into another thing, right? And so I think that for me, it's that constant curiosity that keeps me wanting more and more and more. And again, that could be in the same sector, right? You might choose a sector and you achieve something, but you're so curious to know what's beneath that, what's beneath that, what's beneath that. And that is what keeps me going and keeps me hustling.
But how do you know when it's time to pivot? Meaning, you went from quick, you did the fashion thing
Yeah.
with some time, I think, at Ralph Lauren, and then you started the design company. It was mostly ties. I was trying to find one, but I think they're probably at my parents' house. But
Nice.
I definitely had some because we had to wear ties in high school. But whatever. And then got into media, did that, really hit almost the top there, and then you got into banking. So, but how do you know when it's time for a career pivot that's not this is coming crashing down?
Totally. And I think, I see the moves that I've made from fashion to television to finance as pivots, but also as progressions, right? I really always, before I take a next step, I think, okay, what are the transferable skills that I've developed in the previous step? And how can I now apply them to my new situation, right? And so when I start to feel like, I believe that my skills can be applied better, more effectively, more productively elsewhere, and B, I'm presented with a really great opportunity, I think that is when I know it's time to make the move. And so that really is what happened every step of the way, right? I loved being involved in the fashion world. While I was doing my fashion line, I was appearing on TV a lot because they were doing stories about me being a young entrepreneur. And that's when I got the TV bug. And so I got my practice speaking on camera, speaking to the media while promoting my necktie line. And that really made me realize, wait, I really want to be on TV. And so I took those skills, applied them to TV, got on TV, spent all that time connecting with people, engaging people, asking them questions for a living, just like you're doing, right? Being an interviewer for a living. And then I had the opportunity to go back to Harvard Business School, and I said, wait, I need to go get my MBA. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. But guess what? I'm going to take the skills that I developed on television, that's asking questions, that's distilling information succinctly for an audience, use that in finance. And that's what I'm doing now as a private banker, right? I spend my whole day asking clients questions to understand what matters most to them and to understand how I can bring them the best service possible. And it's also my job to distill information, whether it's for my client or whether I'm speaking in front of the whole firm. And so having that experience on TV, which led from my experience in fashion, has prepared me for this job in finance. So I hope you realize it's a pivot, but it's also a pivot that's informed by prior experience.
I think that is awesome because a lot of people wouldn't see that. Meaning, before you just said it, it's hard to the picture obviously comes together, but I would think the TV was the child of the fashion, and then
Right.
okay, then you went to business school, and then you decided that you should do. But it really is a natural progression, and but I think that one of the things about being someone who has achieved success and continues to gain the success, and part of what we discuss here every week is about everyone finding their hustle.
Yeah.
Not everyone, I've taken a lot of heat on hustle culture. People are, that's of the past. People are, and I don't believe that people should run themselves into the ground. I believe that when you find that, and what I think you're saying about the hustle is equally as important as finding the passion and getting into that hustle is realizing when your hustle would be best utilized elsewhere
Yeah.
and having the internal wherewithal to say, this is where I should be. This is my next hustle. Not because I'm running scared, because this is the progression. And if I
Totally.
take this opportunity now, I'll progress. If I don't, then I'll miss the boat.
Totally. And constantly take an inventory of your experiences, of your skills, of your wishes and desires. Take that inventory and see where it all aligns and how you can maximize, right? So before you go into any new venture, say, okay, here's what I really bring to the table. Here's what I'm missing and what I want to learn. And here's what really matters to me. And see how you can combine all of that.
What is it like when you first go into the public? You were in a relatively private business, then you started appearing on television, but then you went to like be on television. Then you're a public figure,
Yeah.
and then you go back to be a private figure, for lack of a better term. I don't think you can ever leave being a public figure because anyone who's around you, the energy, and you still do those I don't want to say random, but those appearances, which I think
Yeah.
keep the bug, I guess, scratch the itch a little bit.
Yeah.
But what is it like when you go from private to public and then make that decision to take a step back and go back into the private service business?
It's a really, really great question, right? So when I started appearing on Good Day New York, right, I was on TV every single day, 5 to 10 times a day in people's homes. People woke up with me in their homes, right? It's almost super intimate, right? Because you're literally in their bedroom as they're waking up. They get to know you. They think that you have that relationship, and I would love to have that relationship, but in many cases they knew more about me than I knew about them. And so people would stop me on the street every single day, and I used to love taking the opportunity to learn about them, right? Because they knew everything about me. They knew what I like to do for fun. They knew what I did over the weekend because I would talk about it on TV. And I got to ask questions and make it more of a two-way street. But this would happen every single day. And I started to feel like I had this huge community, right? That's really the best part about being in the public eye. It's that everywhere you go, you have friends. You have people who want to talk to you. You have that community, right? And so going into the taking a step back out of that, of course, you never fully leave it, right? I'm still amazed by how many people come up to me, whether I'm at an airport, whether I'm at the supermarket, and say, "Oh, we miss watching you on Good Day," or they'll ask me a question about something I said years ago on Good Day New
No
York or
way.
on Wendy Williams. Yeah, it happens all the time. And that's great, right? Because it never leaves and it keeps you constantly engaged with people, by the way, you may never speak with otherwise. I mean, that's what's great. Somebody will come up to me, I would never be talking to them on a plane, and now we're talking, right? And so it never fully leaves you, but it's definitely an adjustment, right? You go from feeling like you are communicating with people everywhere every single day to now maybe you'll speak to 20 different people instead of, you know, a million people, right? And so it changes how you're communicating. If anything, I think what's interesting is the communication style, right? When you're on TV, you need, when you're speaking, to be able to communicate and really engage with and really, impact everyone from, and I'm not exaggerating, this is the range of people who would come up to me who were watching the show that I was on. It would literally be an amazing person whose job it was to clean the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And on the other side, and this is a socioeconomic scale I'm talking about here, right? Not the worth of a human being. I'm talking about socioeconomically. Literally somebody whose job it is to clean the museum, which is a beautiful, noble job, to one of the most well-known billionaires in New York City. These are two examples of people who told me they were watching every day. It was my job. One person had not finished college, the other person had gone to business school and beyond. It is my job, regardless of socioeconomic position, regardless of education, to communicate, engage, and embrace the viewer. That's a very different challenge than what I have now, which is a lot more one on one communication with a client, or even if I'm talking to the firm, we're all kind of starting at a similar place in terms of our understanding of the topics at hand. And so that really shifted how I communicated. But I would say that if you can communicate broadly and find a way to address the needs of such a range of viewers, you can then more easily, I think, distill it down into a more precise level of communication to address the needs of an individual.
But first of all, I I am amazed, and I shouldn't be, but I'm just amazed at how much thought you've given to all these things. Meaning, a lot, as I said in the open, I think a lot of people would view how communication styles develop as like random,
No,
but but in the life of Baruch, it's not, and I think that that's
no,
and what's incredible to me about that, and when we talk about keep hustling, it's that you don't actually have to do that anymore. Meaning, you a person has reached a certain level in their career where they can say, okay, I'm going to perfect this. I'm always going to keep growing, but I'm not going to try to analyze what was different today. What was with that interaction? How was that? I just want to ask you about just a little bit about the TV thing, just because I'm fascinated by it. What is it? How can you connect with people through a screen? How do you develop that? Meaning, I mean, one of the other differences I think between what you did then and what you're doing now is it's very intimate now. It's, as you said, it's two ways. You have that conversation, you can build and have that communication. I imagine, as sometimes I do, when you talk to a camera or to a screen, yes, you know that there's a million people on the other side, but you're not actually, you're not getting that energy, you're not getting that vibe back. So how do you
right.
even, how
And
do you
I
lock
would
that in?
say, and by the way, I do want to say one thing. You said once you reach a certain place in your career, you don't need to constantly say what, sort of recalibrate, or sort of assess. In my last job, had the opportunity to be up close with some of the biggest stars in the world. And I will tell you, without naming names, some of the most famous people in the world will literally sit down with their teams after every single project or performance and literally go through what they could do better. And I'm talking about people who have performed 100,000 times over a long career, household names internationally. Still, I've been in their presence and seen them go through and say, what can we do better? What can we do better? So I really feel that if you ever reach a point where you're not being thoughtful, I think it's a really dangerous place to be.
And I think that's why those people are successful. My
Right,
point was, a person doesn't have to do that.
right,
Then you'll plateau.
right,
You will not keep
right,
growing.
right.
But I think what you're saying is actually reinforcing my point, which is
Yeah,
when people the reason why those people are in your presence and not the people that maybe they performed their first gig with were
right,
not, was because those
right,
people kept working and the other
right,
people plateaued and stayed
right,
off Broadway, for
right,
lack of a better
right.
term.
We're on the
Never
same
made it to
page.
Broadway.
Right, right. We're on the same page. We're on the same page. And I think that that's the essence of your podcast, right? It's the essence of hustling, is constantly recalibrating, is constantly saying, okay, what can I do better? What can I do better? That is the nature of the hustle. The nature of the hustle is not being satisfied, is not being complacent. And to answer your question about really engaging with that range of people, it all comes down to emotion. What I discovered, and I studied psychology undergrad, right? What I discovered was, regardless of how much money you have in the bank, regardless of what title you have on your business card, regardless of how many parents you have, regardless of, what neighborhood you grew up in, you have the same emotions. Same emotions. And you like to feel the same things. And I saw my job on television as somebody who was there to make people feel something, because I think information in many cases is commoditized. There are so many ways to get your information. If all people wanted was some facts, some pieces of news, then you know what? They didn't need me. I'm just going to say that they didn't need me. Yes, I was there to inform them, but they could get that a lot quicker without having to hear my voice by just scanning Twitter at the time. by just looking at their email. My job was to communicate the facts, but to make them feel something. The facts were just the vehicle for emotion. And so that is how I approached every single appearance. It was, I'm going to put people in a good mood today. I'm going to make people feel emotionally connected today. And that is the feedback that I would get from viewers. It's, oh, you made me feel great. You put me in a good mood in the morning. And that's when I knew that I was succeeding. And regardless if you're a billionaire or you are literally on welfare, you want to feel the same emotions.
100%. Well, I wasn't going to say this, but I'll say this because I remember the first time I saw you on TV. I was in my parents' apartment. I'm like, oh my god, that is. And I remember thinking, and it was you talk about the emotion that you feel.
Yeah.
The first thing was, okay, I've seen him on TV. He's done segments before, right? But then it was like, oh my god, he's a contributor. And I remember thinking, that is awesome. That is awesome. Like someone that I know. It's very often it's hard. And I know that one of the things you did well and that you just described is building that connection. But it's hard to like see yourself connecting with the person who you feel is the celebrity, the person has been. Obviously, that when you have those conversations on the street and things like that, it makes it more human. But it's hard to have those connections and things people feel so foreign in those circumstances. Like, oh my, I know that guy.
Yeah.
I grew up with that guy.
Yeah.
Like literally, what's like school since we were like first grade. Like this is crazy. He's like a contributor on TV. It's awesome. So I think that is something. I think that is also part of the story and part of the hustle is like a guy who just kept figuring it out, is still figuring it out, is building that. I ask all of our guests to take us to the most pivotal moment in their career and think about the kind of where fear, emotion, things like that was in your career. I don't know. I don't want to conjecture and say that I think I know what it is. So what would you say would be like so far to date? Obviously we're not
Yeah.
closing the book. Was the most defining moment and kind of take us to that moment and through it.
So I'll tell you what the moment is, and then you have to promise you're going to tell me what the moment is if it's a different moment, the moment that you
Okay.
predicted. Okay.
Okay.
So for me, it was the moment that I decided to leave my TV job and go back to business school. That was one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make. Is that what you were going to predict?
I was going to say the right before you went on the first time as a regular contributor,
That was a pretty big moment too. That was a pretty big moment too. But
like
if I
fixing your
have to,
tie and saying, "This is my job now. I'm not just appearing.
right,
This is
this
it.
is right. This is a paycheck. This is
This is
real.
it."
Yeah,
And by the way, if
yeah.
I mess this up,
And by the way, live TV is very different than pre-taped.
that's what I'm
It's
saying.
very
That's my
different.
point.
And live TV, what you learn on live TV, and this is honestly very helpful with the whole hustle culture idea, you got to keep going. The number of times, Aaron, that I would be on live television and my teleprompter started going backwards.
No.
Correct. Backwards. And instead of panicking, it's my job to just keep talking. Just keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. And don't let the audience know that there's a problem. Just keep moving forward. And luckily, I always knew what I was talking about, right? You would never go on TV, and there are people who do this. It's a bad idea, in my opinion. You don't just go on TV and read cold what's on the teleprompter. You want to read your scripts before, and you want to know what you're talking about, so that if your teleprompter breaks, you can keep talking and you know the story that you're trying to convey. And
Wasn't there a
every time,
celebrity? Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
no, and every time that happened, I would check afterwards with somebody watching, and they'd be like, "Oh, we had no idea."
What? Yeah, was there a celebrity that had like at the Super Bowl or something, and the earpiece went out, and it was like the best performance? I think there's something with that where the people can make it look, and then just to get into the hustle on that, and then I want to hear about the moment when you decided to
Yeah,
leave live TV. When you do that the first time, and it's seamless,
feels great.
and you're like, hold on, I can really do anything. Not that I don't want the teleprompter, not that I want that to happen again tomorrow, but if I just weathered that storm when it could have just totally blown the whole thing, and then I would have had to say it was my fault. The prompter was back, and
Right,
I did it.
right.
You're like, hey, maybe I can do more. Maybe I can do better. Maybe I can push a
Totally.
little.
Totally. It's a blessing. It's a blessing when it happens because it shows you can. 100%. And it makes you a little less nervous because you're like, okay, well, it can't get much worse than that. like it could, but it can't get much worse than that. So like, okay, I got through that. I could do this. And so I would say those were some pretty interesting moments. Those were pretty pivotal moments, right? And I would say I was probably somewhat nervous going on TV the first few hundred times, right? Like it took a few hundred TV appearances to feel like it was completely organic, right? There was always a little bit of nervousness, a little bit of nervousness. And that's normal, right? To feel a little nervous before you go on live TV. But I would say after doing it a few hundred times, I felt like it was just a part of me. It was just who I was. It was like riding a bike. And frankly, once you are able to feel that, I think you can give it the most because you're now not worrying about like on a bike, you're not worrying about okay, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot. Now you're worrying about the next level. You're thinking, okay, how much more resistance can I put on? You know, what how steep of a hill can I climb? And it's the same thing with TV. Once you're not nervous about the idea of being on live television anymore, you can now focus on being fully engaged with your subject and fully engaged with your subject matter, fully engaged with your audience. And that's, I think, where magic happens. And you know, when I had to make that decision to leave my TV job, which was an amazing job, and I'll be forever grateful for that opportunity. And it was one of the biggest blessings of my life that I was able to be on TV for years. I remember where I was. I had been offered a new contract, and it was a Friday night, and I just had a realization. I said, you know what? I am going to do something different. It was this really fork in the road moment where I said, okay, if I take this new contract for, by all accounts, a dream job, right? A job that everybody would kill for, I said, if I take that new contract, I'm never going to go to business school. I'm never going to pursue something different. That's going to be my track. And that's a beautiful track. But I knew instinctively, and this is where the intangible comes to play, the instinct. I knew instinctively that I need to go get my MBA. I need to go pursue a job that would allow me to build something in a way that I felt that I hadn't previously. I wanted to build a business where I could see the progress year after year and really build something for the future. And I felt that business school was step one and then business was step two. And it was the instinct. And I called my agent on that Friday night and I said,
Oh God.
let's put a pause. Let's put a pause on the negotiations. I think I may want to do something different. And I spoke to the head of, you know, to my boss the following week, and I remember what he said. He said, we will support you, whatever you want to do. He said, take some time, think about it, let us know. The offer stands. And that was a beautiful thing, right? Because it gave me the flexibility to actually make the decision that was right for me and not to feel a level of undue pressure that would force me to make an artificial decision. And so that was a really, really pivotal moment.
That's I mean, that's crazy. First of all, I can't imagine what your agent said, but that's okay. But the other
She
thing I'll
was
tell you,
supportive. She was
yeah, she was
supportive. Let
supportive.
me
Yeah.
tell you, she was supportive. She was.
Until you decided to, yeah, okay. I got it. Everyone has to say that. I got it. It's fine. But I was saying, I'm just
She
kidding.
was.
But I think, first of all, I for one and my family are grateful that you made that because we're present. We're lucky to be able to know you now that you've come back off. I'm sorry to the millions and millions of Americans who no longer get to see you on television. But I think it's just remarkable because it wasn't like you pivoted to a different thing. You decided to go back to school.
Yeah.
People don't go back to school when they have it. Like
But
sports players retire and then go back to school because they have to figure out what's next in their career.
yeah.
You're like Barry Sanders, the football player, just hung it up when after he won the MVP. Like that's I find that unbelievable. But I also find it incredible that you found it rewarding now and that you're finding that same purpose. I assume you don't regret it, and I
Yeah.
assume that your hustle has just been further inspired in what you're doing now because and the reason why I can say that with confidence is because the energy that you bring, you haven't stalled on the energy. You haven't plateaued in that. And I think that that's a good way to tell people in their hustle is if you start dragging your feet and lose that energy and lose that passion, then I think that's a telltale sign to make a switch. But gosh, I love it. Wow. Baruch, Your hustle inspires me. You're the man. I'm
Your
so
hustle inspires me. Look at you. I mean, look at what you're doing, right? The fact that your day job wouldn't immediately suggest that you'd also be hosting this podcast, right? But you're a hustler. So you say, okay, who am I? How do I expand my personal brand and my personal abilities? How do I reach more people and make more impact? And that's the hustle. So you inspire me. Look,
I
what you're doing is what I used to do every day is reaching people, bringing them information, inspiring them, making them feel something. It's huge.
I I love that. I appreciate that. We ask all of our guests to leave us really thank you for being here. I don't usually say thank you so much, but really thank you for being here. Thank you for
Thank you
everything.
for having me. No,
We're gonna
I'm
get together
honored.
when I'm back in the city.
I can't wait to see you in person. I'm honored to be on your podcast. It means a lot. Thank you.
You're the man. We ask all of our guests to leave us with their favorite inspirational or motivational quote, what it means to them, what it is, and how it inspires their hustles. So, Baruch, thank you again for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, I'd say it's a quote that I'm sure many people have heard before, but it's real. It's true. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And that has always driven me, right? My dad used to encourage me when I would have a question as a kid, right? And I would say, oh, can you go ask that grown up this question? I'm curious about this. He's like, no, that's your question. You go ask it. And that was the best thing I ever learned, which is if you have a question, go ask it. If you want to do something, go do it. If you have a mission, go pursue it, right? It's all about saying, this is what I want to do. I'm going to try it. And if it doesn't work, yeah, I failed, but did I really? I know now that I've tried it, right? And I've probably learned something, and I'm probably going to incorporate something into something I do in the future. And so every step of the way, people would have said, don't go on TV. You're never going to make it. You're never going to make it. I'm like, no, I'm going to try really, 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 really hard. And I need to know that I tried really, really, really hard to get on TV. And it worked, right? And now in my life as a banker, I do the same thing. It's all about pursuing what you want to pursue and not thinking, oh, well, what if it doesn't work out? Right. And again, it's easier said than done because you need some gumption. You need not to be, really dictated by your fears. But I think that if you can really pursue what your goals are, take all of those shots, enough shots will work out and make your life more enjoyable, more productive, and more fulfilling.
I love it. I love it. Baruch Shemtov, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Really
This has been
appreciate
another
you.
episode. You're welcome. This has been another episode of Keep Hustling. Remember, do well by doing good and always keep hustling. All right, hustlers, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. If you have any suggestions, comments, or even just want to say hello, please feel free to reach out to us on all social media platforms. We are Keep Hustling Pod. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep hustling.